Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Carlin Gay getting ready for the big festivities in the All-Star Game coming up this week. He'll have to shed some light on those because I got no idea who's in it this year, dunk contest or anything like that. I can't believe in my day I actually went to the dunk contest and I went to the All-Star Game in Miami, and now I have so little interest in it. But I digress. We'll save that for the end. Let's get to last night's basketball. Carlin, great to have you back here. Thank you for coming on NewsWire. Boy, Oklahoma City really impressive, and they've had two seasons, it feels like, Carlin. They've had their season where they just were crushing everybody, and then they had their season that they took a little bit of a step back, and then I probably would say this is like their little third mini season here because they're doing all of this damage without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and somehow still putting up like 130 points a game. Very impressive.
It's super impressive, and it's sending a message to the rest of the league that this isn't just a one-man band. This isn't a complete team. And, I want to shout out Jalen Williams. Like, yes, he's an all-star. Yes, he's a guy that plays both ends of the floor. Some would put him in the top three as a two-way player in the NBA today. But even as he won a championship last season, he still doesn't get enough shine as being the 1B to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 1A. And without Shai out, the spotlight is on him. And last night, 28 points against a Suns team who, by the way, surprising some people out west, right? Like, this isn't a bad team. They didn't crush the Sacramento Kings here. They crushed the Phoenix Suns. And, doing it without your best player defensively, we know what they're able to do and they're capable of doing. But to your point, Craig, the 136 points is pretty amazing. That trade to get Jared McCain fell under the radar right at the deadline. A guy that's going to be able to come off the bench and just have a role in terms of just shooting threes, whereas in Philly, he probably would have been asked to do a lot more given the injuries they have. Probably the second best trade. I have a better trade than that went under the radar in the market, but a pretty good trade for the defending champions. And as long as they stay healthy, they'll probably go on a run, and you'll have to go through them if you plan on getting to the finals if you're out west.
Definitely feels that way. McCain last night, as Carlin mentioned, had 12 points, 2 of 3 from three-point range, averaging double digits. Is something when a bench player can add to a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder can help a lot. If they're going to get run through, maybe one of those teams is going to be the Denver Nuggets, who I'm sure, Carlin, are now going to start to go and play much better basketball now that Nikola Jokic is back. 26 points, 15 rebounds, 11 assists, 10 of 14 from the field yesterday. They beat the Grizzlies 122 to 116. I don't know if Denver is Oklahoma City's main adversary. I think some would feel that could be San Antonio, but I'm not going to discount the Nuggets based on the way that they're playing recently.
I would say those some people that you're talking about that think it's San Antonio might be wrong, or actually they are wrong. It is absolutely the Denver Nuggets here in the Western Conference. If you remember, Denver is the one that took them right to 7 games a year ago before Oklahoma City went on to the finals and were able to win a championship. And that was with a very compromised lineup. Like, Aaron Gordon was injured, Jamal Murray was hurt. Jokic really had to carry a team that were missing some pieces. And by the way, their head coach had just been coaching for like 2 weeks at that point before he got into that series. I think he had like 8 regular season games under his belt. He ended up with more coaching experience in the playoffs than he did in the regular season. So now they have a full season. They have a full season with this team, coaching staff. They actually got better off the bench, in my opinion, adding Cam Johnson, replacing and I know he's having a great season in Brooklyn, but getting rid of someone that was kind of like a black hole, a selfish player, and replacing him with more team-friendly player in Cam Johnson. That helps. Christian Braun is a year older, or Brown, excuse me, is a year older. Jamal Murray looks healthy and he's finally an all-star. Tim Hardaway Jr. brings you some experience off the bench as well. And getting back Bruce Brown off the champion, they lost him off the championship team, getting him back into the lineup. He knows what to do. Once they get Aaron Gordon back, this team will be flying. And they are the team that if Oklahoma City doesn't win the championship, I expect is because the Denver Nuggets took them out.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is still the favorite to win the MVP. The numbers have slimmed a little bit, minus 220 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. The big move, Carlin, has been Luka Doncic falling all the way back to 20 to 1. He was right with Luka at the top as far as being a favorite. I'm sorry, right with SGA, but now he has fallen back. And so do you think that holds? Do you think SGA still wins? I know he has to play a certain amount of games also to qualify for this award as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the most interesting part about this. If you're trying to figure out where to place your money, I would say right now I'm placing my money on either Cade Cunningham, and I'm even going to go somewhere else out east, Jaylen Brown, who's having an MVP type season with Boston. If anything happens with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and he gets any sort of bad news coming out of the All-Star break and doesn't meet the game requirement, Well, then you go to the next line down. That's Nikola Jokic, who cannot miss a single game from here on out. He's out of the
Wow.
mix. And then you kind of go by default and you look at Cade Cunningham and Jaylen Brown and the rest of that field. So this is going to be one of the most interesting MVP races, not because there's going to be debate, but because you're going to be game watching to see, all right, if you're Oklahoma City, do you push Shai to play some games just so he could win an MVP? Or do you take a step back and say, you know what, you won your MVP. It's more important to win an NBA title. We're going to hold you out a couple of games, even if that means that you're not going to go back-to-back an MVP year. Same for Nikola Jokic. Once you get down to the last couple of games of the regular season, last 2 weeks, do we risk twisting an ankle going into the playoffs or playing an extra game against, say, the Sacramento Kings or Memphis Grizzlies, right? Like, you could rest him in those situations, and that would take him out of the race. So, I would right now put my money on someone out east like a Cade or even a Jaylen Brown. And then, fingers crossed. And what it's like. The NBA players don't really like to play games. So you're probably in a good bet to land with one of those other guys.
Yeah, I mean, eligibility is the key to the MVP this year. It seems like it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we haven't talked since I don't think this trade went down where James Harden was moved to Cleveland. I really didn't understand this one because I thought that the Clippers were really playing good basketball, and Kawhi Leonard carried them again last night, and they end up beating the Houston Rockets 105-102. But my confidence level in the Clippers, I mean, it does certainly feel like Kawhi probably didn't have a great supporting cast when he won the championship in Toronto. But Carlin, that was a really long time ago, and Kawhi's a lot older than and he's missed a lot of games since then too. So, I mean, nice win that they got last night, but my confidence level after that trade, even though they got Garland back in return, isn't nearly as high.
Yeah, I would say in hindsight, looking back on that Toronto team, you can say that Kawhi Leonard didn't look on paper at that time that he had the support cast around him. All those players in that regular rotation have now become all-stars after Norman Powell made the all-star team this year. You talk about Serge Ibaka, Norman Powell, Marc Gasol had been an all-star, Kyle Lowry, Pascal Siakam was an all-NBA player. The list goes down, right? So he had a really good team. We just didn't know it at the time. Fast forward to now, right? Like James Harden would probably be a top-end player you'd want to match around Kawhi Leonard. Problem is James Harden wants to get paid. He wants to have some more security. And you know what? He's about his business, and he decided, hey, if the Clippers aren't going to pay me, let me find another team that I could get to that will pay me. That ended up being the Cavs. Lucky thing for the Clippers, though, I think they ended up with a pretty good player in Darius Garland to replace James Harden and what he could bring to the table. So This is one of those rare trades that I think helps both teams.
All right, so let's get to the odds to win the Western Conference here. We've got Oklahoma City minus 150, Denver plus 380, San Antonio 8-1. And Carlin sort of gave it away earlier by saying that he thinks that Denver is that potential team. But you didn't say, Carlin, that you thought Denver would beat Oklahoma City. You just said that you thought that they were their main adversary. Accurate?
Accurate, and I'll go out and say it now. I do think that in a 7-game series, if it started today, both teams healthy, I would pick the Denver Nuggets in a best of 7 to just slightly edge the Oklahoma City Thunder. And it's just based off what I saw last year. Nikola Jokic was able to push him to a 7th game, and they weren't fully healthy. And by the way, the Thunder were, right? Like the Thunder were fully healthy. They were complete. That's what I think. That's how good I think Nikola Jokic is in a 7-game series. It's tough to stop. So I would give the edge to Denver Nuggets to get out of the Western Conference right now.
Tell me something on All-Star Weekend before you go, Carlin. Try. Give it a shot. Try to sell
watch
me
the
on
dunk
something.
contest. Jace Richardson, if you remember his dad, Jason Richardson, was in the dunk contest at one time. How about a father and son winning the dunk contest? Has that ever happened before? I don't think so.
No. I'm trying to. Bud Webb's dad, was he ever in it? Or his son? I'm kidding. I don't think. Dominique Wilkins, Kenny Walker,
yeah,
Jordan.
Yeah, no, it hadn't happened.
Cedric Ceballos. Is Ceballos his kid?
You got that. No, Ceballos never had it. You see, you're naming great dunk contests. Now you're going to make me feel bad when I watch Saturdays and not have the same experiences as I had when I was watching those.
Now they have to bring cars out on the court to make them fun. All right, Carlin, thanks again. Great to have Danny Burke back on the show from Your Betting News. Danny was kind enough to come on the show from the Super Bowl site last week, and now we're going to get into the latest in the National Basketball Association as we get ready for the All-Star break. Danny, what will you ever do with no NBA to cover this weekend? What do you have a secondary focus? I mean, it is a strange time of the year for sports. Let's be honest. We're waiting on baseball. NBA takes a break. I guess college basketball and the Olympics, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, we're gonna have to transition a little bit over to the collegiate scene, or get some of those All-Star Game prop bets going, Craig. Something along those lines. But we'll be sweating out the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. So I'm a big golf
That's true.
handicapper myself. So I've gotten largely into that over the past couple of years, in part to get by through these slower months, but also because I'm a huge fan in my own right. So yeah, I'll kind of be just lounging out in the colder Chicago weather, coming back from the West Coast here, hunkered down watching some golf.
Let's get into some results from the NBA and then we'll press it forward. Let's start off in the Eastern Conference, Danny, where the Knicks end on a really good note up until the All-Star break with a 138 to 89 win over the Philadelphia 76ers. Very strange season for the Knicks at this point, Danny, and not a team that's really fun to bet on because at any particular night they can lose to Indiana as a 12-point favorite and then show up the next game. I mean, I guess that is the nature of the NBA in this day and age. I get that, but the Knicks maybe more so than other teams.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about this Knicks team too is, as you're alluding to, like it's hard to get a read on them, especially because of their defense. With Thibodeau being their leader, you knew what you could expect on that side of the ball, and it was like on the offensive side, that's where the volatility was going to be present. Now, under new regime, the defense has slid. They're slowly improving, but it still feels hard to get a complete grasp on what type of unit they are. So I'm cautiously optimistic, is the way that I'm putting it, with New York in terms of their long term abilities. And then on the other side, I mean, man, Philadelphia. I mean, this team I just want nothing to do with, and I think for the most part, the general public doesn't want anything to do with them, because even if Embiid is going to play and be healthy, you just don't know how long that's going to be for, and you know how much they falter in some of these big moments. So the East is kind of a crapshoot right now, but certainly would rather put more stock into New York than Philadelphia, as I'm sure most people would.
Well, one team rising with the trade of acquiring James Harden is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're winning to show for it here, Danny. They win 138 to 113. Harden 13 points, 11 assists, 4 rebounds, but really the odds, as you know, have jumped significantly. Cleveland started off the season in the East as one of the favorites. They fell back, lost a bunch of games, and then started winning again, but it wasn't enough. They traded Garland for Harden. Do you think that this is the move that puts them over the top, or are they still in that second tier for you in the conference?
Yeah, that move is really fascinating because there's two sides to this coin, how I view it. I mean, James Harden is certainly an aging veteran, but at the same time, he's playing some of the best basketball that we've seen from him. And then on the other side, you could go, well, you're dishing out a young player in Garland who has so much potential. And yeah, you can make that case. But then the other side of that argument is, well, they've plateaued with him. I mean, you're only getting a certain amount of production with him on a nightly basis, and I think that's what they came to the realization of, is that we're only going to get so far with a player like Darius Garland. So I don't really mind it. It doesn't move the needle for me an incredible amount, in the sense of wanting to bet them to come out of the East. I think it helps them a little bit because you have that veteran presence of James Harden, albeit he hasn't made it too far in the postseason in his own right, but he's a great facilitator and he can get a clutch bucket when need be, unlike Darius Garland, on a consistent basis, and help kind of alleviate some of that pressure off of Donovan Mitchell. So I think it helps them, but it's not making me go nuts about the transaction and thinking they're for sure the best team in the East.
Detroit takes care of Toronto 113 to 95, so they close out in a big way as well. And as you know, they are one of those teams right now that I would say still with a very good opportunity to potentially win that conference, Danny. They've been, as I've called, the most consistent team in the East this year.
Mhm. Yeah, look, this team is impressive in every right. I mean, the fact that they built this up from just going from straight tanking to then taking a year last year where they surprised people but still made it into the postseason, right? And like I always say when I evaluate teams in the NBA, I want them to be chiseled with adversity. I want them to have that experience in losing in the postseason. And the Cavs did it a few years ago, but they made nothing of it with the best regular season team last year. Now you have a similar situation with Detroit, a team with an early exit last season in the postseason. But of course, that caught everybody by surprise that they did that well. Now they show that up, take another step forward. They have some of that postseason experience, have a lot more leadership and just overall depth throughout that roster. And it's great enough, as evident throughout this regular season play, to get them to the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, I would say. I'm still a little wishy washy on them actually representing the East in the NBA Finals. But man, I mean, they're good enough to get them to that final spot in the East. It's just a matter of who they're matched up against. And as easy as it is to say, 1v2, them and the Celtics, I truly think that's the best case scenario right now. And this Boston team is looking great, even without Tatum. I mean, Jaylen Brown has been a menace, and I like some of the moves they made around the deadline, too.
Tonight, the Oklahoma City Thunder will close out their first half probably by scoring 130 points, Danny, because that's what they do. But will the Bucks cover the spread? I don't think they're winning this game tonight. Total 215.5. This is becoming more or less a lost season for Milwaukee at this point.
Mhm.
We know that the Thunder have a lot still to play for, albeit without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander tonight, but it hasn't seemed to matter. Everyone's stepping up without him playing.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about this OKC team is how much depth they have, how much camaraderie they have, and they know each respective role with one another. I mean, they genuinely seem to like to be around each other. Their acquisition of Jared McCain, I think, was arguably the best around the deadline. They have so many picks to give up. They go, yeah, let's get a young potential rising star and someone who could fit this culture perfectly. And that's exactly what they did in this game tonight. Yeah, it's certainly not one I'm circling out to sit down and watch as a 13-point favorite or the Oklahoma City Thunder. Both teams on the second leg of a back-to-back. No Giannis for the Bucks, no SGA for the Thunder, as you alluded to, and potentially no Jalen Williams. He exited last night's game early against the Phoenix Suns. I'm sure they'll hold him out right before the All-Star break. But at the same time, that gives more opportunities for a role player like Cason Wallace. And that's where my bet is going to be centered around. Is Cason Wallace getting over 7.5 rebounds and assists? Even money is a price I got. You may have to lay a little bit now, but if you're not going over about minus 115, I still think it's a viable look. He's been steady this season, logging about 26, 27 minutes per game. But with the absence of SGA over their past 4 spots, that's increased to over 30. And in that span, his potential assists have gone up from 5 to 8.5. And he's also facing a Milwaukee Bucks team that rebounds the ball at a below average rate. So I think for a role player like him, especially on the second leg of a back-to-back, with some of the key players missing, he'll be able to get over 7.5 rebounds and assists. And in that same spot, really quick, Craig, I took Bobby Portis under 10.5 points. Pretty simple. He's been struggling without Giannis. A defensive shift goes to him as the big man. And the Thunder are number 1 in opponent field goal percentage from mid-range, which is where about half of his shots come from.
Let's close it out with the Lakers and Mavericks tonight. Dallas, one of those teams playing for next season. Lakers 7.5-point favorites, and their success, meaning LA, has been Austin Reeves playing or not. When he plays, they win. When he doesn't, it's 50-50. 234.5 is the total tonight. I know LA would love to close out the first half with a win.
Man, Craig, I was close to laying the points here with the Lakers, but in so many instances where I have the same sentiment, it's just the Lakers go out there, throw out a dud. And I know each game is different in their own context. And I'll certainly be watching this one, monitoring it as the primetime spot and hoping for a better in-game number. But largely, I agree with you. I think the Lakers take this game with a lot of pride heading into the break. With no Luka, I think LeBron has a huge night. He's been consistent, but he's not certainly been the LeBron we're accustomed to at his age. The fact he's been able to produce what he has been doing is impressive in its own right. So I actually think he'll exceed some of his scoring averages we've seen tonight. And I would lean toward the Lakers winning this game, but I'll wait for a better in-game number. The pre-flop prop that I did take, though, a guy I think will struggle on Dallas is Daniel Gafford, under 8.5 rebounds and assists, minus $120. Has not been logging a lot of minutes or been that productive as of late, and I think the same will persist in this matchup tonight.
Awesome stuff. As always, Danny, we'll catch up again soon. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
You bet, Craig. Take care.